So people have been getting very excited about the reformation of Oasis. Well, here are some reasons to avoid the Oasis reunion. It is not the 90s. The 90s, the fashions, the music, the celebrities and culture. Maybe you're old enough and were there, and if you know, you know. It was turbulent at times, but with an air of optimism and hedonism. But the 21st century is a very different time now, and whilst the news of the Gallagher brothers actually playing music together can prompt an air of nostalgia for those of a certain age, younger folk will not have experienced that time. They have no real way of comparing what it was like in mid-90s Britain with the electricity and dynamism generated by what was at that time, at least numbers-wise, the UK's favourite band. Today's music scene is radically different, the industry has changed, and the content, carefully curated by a well-oiled digital machine, is a million miles away from 30 years ago. Dad rock, people could argue, and everything around it is toxic, Neanderthal, old and stale. Oasis had their time, had huge success initially, and then, some might say, gradually tailed off with diminishing returns. Nostalgia, whilst nice occasionally, isn't going to bring back those heady days. And even whilst politically we have a parallel to that time, such as a brand new Labour government, the 90s it is not. For some born after that time, it might not make as much sense than to the people who lived through it. Times have changed, and a lot of people have just simply moved on. Is it really a reunion? Now currently, as I put this video together, of the classic Oasis lineup of the 90s, only Bonehead has been rumoured to be taking part. Obviously there wouldn't be Tony McCarroll, the drummer who was fired shortly after the juggernaut that was What's the Story Morning Glory was set in motion, and it's unclear if his replacement, Alan White, has been asked. Bassist Guigsy would be a very improbable long shot after not being part of the setup in the noughties and beyond, and out of the limelight completely. And while some fans might love to see all the old gang, there are few that would envisage such an occurrence. Reports of Gem joining back up with the guys are at this point unfounded, and whispers that some of Noel's backing band, the High Flying Birds, to fill in certain roles is a possibility, especially as Zach could be a buffer between the warring brothers, and possibly something Noel himself has insisted upon, as I imagine he has a set of demands for this reunion. Whilst the focus has always been on the singer and the songwriter, the rest of the band were integral to who Oasis were, and so to some, calling it an Oasis reunion without certain key members is a little misleading at this point, as it's merely the Gallagher brothers who are reuniting as such, but time will tell, and we will see who they get back into the fold. Ticket prices. 2 words: dynamic pricing. The bane of live music fans' existence is sky-high prices, which have gone up dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years, especially at these big arena and stadium shows. For the princely sum of £22.50, you could have gotten lucky and secured a ticket to one of the 2 huge Nebworth shows that Oasis played in the summer of 1996. Now clearly inflation has moved things along a bit, but even just the lowest tiered pricing of standing tickets being around £148 for this new tour is still a fair amount of money for most people. But add in the dynamic pricing element, where ticket prices fluctuate so that the ticket sellers can capitalise on the fastest selling sections by bumping up prices as they're being sold. Well, reports of people paying hundreds and some even thousands of pounds, which is way over what the face value would be, is a complete rip-off, and could stop real fans from going, let alone just casual fans. Add to that the demand being huge, you're considered lucky if you got any tickets, whatever the cost. Will they even play the dates? A real concern of many is, will they actually see this tour through? There are many factors at play with this, and the Gallagher brothers story is well known, so I won't go back over that. The band's dynamic sibling rivalry of the older brother writing the songs and being in charge, whilst the younger being out front, singing, living the life of the rock star, whilst also thinking he's the face of Oasis. I mean, the tensions have piled up, and they've spilled over many times. Sometimes Oasis have had to cancel, postpone or scrap gigs, and some of that has been because of the brothers' acrimony towards each other. One of the real issues where Noel still bears a grudge is Liam's questioning of the parentage of Noel's eldest child, which he has said he finds nearly impossible to forgive. So it seems that a temporary truce has been called to reunite for a set of hugely lucrative shows. With a £20 million divorce settlement to pay, Noel has seen the demand for Oasis was too big to ignore any longer, and the time was right to go back into the trenches and take the plunder. But can they survive being around each other, even only at gigs if necessary, for the time that it would take to complete the dates? If they did, what about getting through possible European dates and potentially shows in the States? Announcing gigs a year in advance is a hugely optimistic gamble, considering the combustible nature of their relationship. Hopefully the two of them have truly put the past behind them, as if they haven't, That really could spell trouble, and for the fan, having something happen where gigs or the whole thing was cancelled would be a crushing blow after having waited so long for them to get back together. Are they actually any good live? Oasis have always been a polarising band from the outset, with their working class ways, which seemed rough to some, through the Britpop battle with Blur, global stardom to the fallings out, and the lineup changes. They've always been loved and loathed, in equal measures by many. Some hate Liam's oafish antics, and complete lack of filter, and Noel has said some pretty offensive things as well. One of these divides has been on the actual entertainment value they bring. Now, you can acknowledge that the slight air of menace and the feeling that something might happen at an Oasis gig could seem exciting to some, but detractors would point this out and the band's on-stage lack of showmanship as a negative factor. Standing still whilst creating the big sound that bursts from the speakers is not too arresting a sight visually. That is the dynamic and tension that many love the band for. The lack of playing ability, the standing still, and the musical performances by many members, especially the classic lineup, say criticisms of one-note Giggsy and Can't Play McCarroll, etc, etc. In 2024, are Oasis able to give people value for money? Are people going to these gigs for the music, the I was there factor, the entertainment, the tension? Whilst the visual setup has improved, judging from their solo careers, don't expect anything like U2 or Pink Floyd in that respect. And whilst Liam might prowl the stage and stand in his usual hands behind the back pose as ever, dramatic flair is not really their forte. For younger people who have grown up on gigs getting to the point where it's almost like 3 different shows rolled into one, they could be disappointed with Oasis' brand of straight-ahead rock and roll. Hopefully, they'll know what they're in for, and the $100 spent is worth it. So that's reasons to ignore the Oasis reunion. Now check out my video for reasons the Oasis reunion is great. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.